What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only NIO stock, what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to do some in-depth technical analysis and talk about why underneath NIO is set to explode, in my opinion. We're going to get a very nice continuation of this big run as NIO is up over 17% for the day today alone. Let's go. Now, before I break anything down about why I'm still very bullish on NIO, why I think this thing has more room to go, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner, so don't take any of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is any of these 12 free stocks could be a free NIO share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 1 week. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So looking at NIO, in my previous video, I talked about something that's very important. That's the fact that NIO was looking pretty bullish, in my opinion. I was anticipating NIO to actually push up a bit more going forward. Now, what I wanted to talk about is the fact that there are many companies out there that are talking about how they're bullish on NIO. I was actually mentioning that in my videos, whether you're looking at JP Morgan or other companies out there, many big banks. And on top of that, I wanted to talk about something else that was big. So I was looking at NIO from a technical standpoint, and I mentioned the fact that we were waiting for confirmation of an uptrend because NIO was very oversold after that big news that came out from the president of China, or whatever you want to call him, after what he said about them prioritizing the party, the country, and their pride instead of business ventures. And that was not good for many EV companies and NIO as a whole. So what happened on that day, let me just bring up the daily chart on NIO when I talk about this. What happened was NIO came down very hard on that day. I'm sure you guys remember that. See when NIO touched that $8 mark, right? And what I did is I drew out a trend line, and we could see that we could connect these in a very interesting pattern. And at least looking at this from a more like recent time frame over the last couple of months, NIO has been respecting this pattern. So you could see that NIO kind of ping pongs between these zones. NIO touched the bottom of this trend line, got a nice bounce, came down to touch it again, another bounce to the top, got rejected off the top, touched it again, came down, touched it again, kind of broke above it before we actually came tumbling down, and we ended up just touching it before getting a bounce. Now, when I was talking about confirmation of it, all right, I said in order for us to confirm that NIO is on an uptrend, we need to start respecting higher highs and higher lows. And what happened was NIO touched 8.38. We bounced, went up to 11 bucks, got rejected off resistance. We come down to the 9.28 zone, just like this, back and forth, and we were actually holding it a little bit better. We came below it temporarily, but then we got a big spring-like reversal. So this whole thing is resembling like a Wyckoff accumulation schematic as well, on a like more miniature time frame. Then after that, we got like the LPS followed by the big run up. And you could see right here, the new bottom for NIO was $9. This was just as of yesterday when the market took a big hit. And it's showing signs of it just slowly uptrending. So that's why I was more bullish for today in my previous video from yesterday. However, I did not predict NIO would actually run this hard in such a short period of time. My prediction for NIO was for it to hit 10.4, maybe break above that, hit 10.7 at the highest, and come down and still make it to like the mid $10 range. Instead, this thing just blasted through all of those into open. We broke past $11 in 1 day. We actually were up 17.4% for the day, and we closed above $11. And then my next resistance level above 11 was 11.67, right? I'm sure you guys remember that from my video. If you guys were watching my videos, I mentioned this previously. And where did NIO close at? 11.69, so just barely above it, but the body of the candle happens to be like very close to that too. The wick is just a little bit above. So we had a very big push into the close, especially when power hour came. NIO looks very primed for more potential upside. So why is NIO pumping? Well, there are many reasons. One of the things was I was mentioning that shorts may be getting ready to cover. Why was I saying that? Well, looking at the data, let me just bring this down. I was talking to you guys about how, look, when you look at NIO's short interest, this thing was going through the roof. You guys see this? Then it started coming down again and again, and it was on this downtrend. So I mentioned that there's a chance many of these shorts may start to cover, especially because NIO has earnings coming out very soon. And I also mentioned that NIO had a very strong deliveries report, especially compared to many of the projections from analysts. Let me see if I can bring up the data for you guys just to make this as clear as possible. I'm going to go in more details a little bit later. Let me actually mention something. Where is it? I think it's like right here. Is this for November? Uh, right here. So for November, we can see NIO had another pretty decent deliveries report. Uh, I want to now talk about something else though. Give me 1 second. Let's open this in a new tab. Let's see if I can get this to look bigger. All right, it's bigger. So anyways, going down, guys, when you look at the numbers, you could see that for Q3 from July, August, September, look at NIO's deliveries. NIO beat on not just previous data, but they beat on estimates. Remember the big banks out there? I think it was JP Morgan. No, it was like Goldman Sachs, I think. One of those companies, I think it was Goldman Sachs. They lowered their target on NIO. They were saying NIO's only going to deliver 28,000 cars. They're only going to get to like 27 to 28,000. NIO ended up doing over 31,000. So they beat projections by over 10%. That's despite demand slowing down in China. Despite the lockdowns, they still defied the odds. And look at their latest deliveries report for October, right? 3,667 is what we got in 2021. NIO did over 10,000 again. So now NIO is getting consistent 10,000, 10,000, 10,000 months. We're on the verge of delivering over 120,000 cars per year at this rate alone. And remember, it's going to increase as time goes on. So it's probably going to be well above 120,000. We're talking about closer to 200,000, maybe even 300,000 over the next couple of months, maybe by a year from now. So very good deliveries from this company, guys. So why on earth was I bringing up Q3? What does that have to do with anything? Well, NIO has, and I'm sorry about this as they just keep popping up. NIO has earnings on November 10th. All right. We're going to find out their earnings per share. We're going to find out their revenue. How are they doing on these expansions? In my opinion, I think NIO will have some decent revenue, but I'm not 100% sure about their earnings per share. I mean, I still think they're going to report pretty good stuff. I'm more optimistic. I think they should beat on it. I'm just a little bit worried, a little bit apprehensive because of the lockdown situations, which could affect their margins. But nonetheless, guys, I'm still very bullish. I think they're going to announce some good things, and I still think they should have a pretty good report. So now we're starting to push up as we approach this date, like I predicted. And I do believe we have more potential to continue. Now, when it comes to this whole deliveries report and everything else that was going on, I wanted to mention something else that's important. That's the fact that on November 8th, we have midterm elections in the USA. That's very important for the markets because politicians, they affect the amount of regulations that come out for many of these businesses and also taxation policies and things like that. That's going to be important, right? Whichever party wins could also affect the way the market moves. Also, one party could actually cause the market to move and maybe blame another party. Things like that could happen, right? So I'm thinking that the US markets, if you look at SPY, the NASDAQ, the QQQ, I think they're going to hold up pretty well or like just okay approaching November 8th. But when we get to like November 10th, CPI is coming out and that could have a negative effect on the markets. So that's the only thing that's kind of like concerning me, even for NIO, because CPI for October is likely not going to be that good by the 10th. And NIO has earnings at the same time. So perhaps it's not going to affect NIO that bad. Maybe NIO still pushes up despite it and doesn't really affect us that much. And that's the only thing that's just kind of concerning me just a little bit. Besides that, though, I'm still very bullish, at least approaching that date. So where this vertical line is, I think NIO has potential to break past the 12s now. We could go even higher than that. I'm going to actually make another video about my projections a little bit later, but I just want to make it clear, guys. I think this thing is set for some explosive moves. Just to make this as fast as possible, let me find some gaps on this thing, because this thing has a tendency of going for those gaps, guys. That's one thing I know about NIO. It loves to do that when this thing starts to run. We have a gap here around that 12.25 zone. It looks like NIO is going to fill that. We have a lot of resistance right here. You could see lots of sideways action around this. Let me see, 13.41 zone. I could see NIO hitting that. I mean, we could see this. I mean, if this thing is super bullish and this thing explodes, I mean, there's another gap in at like 14.79. We could even fill that if this thing keeps going over the next couple of days. But for the short term, guys, I'm going to be a little bit more realistic. We got to break the $12 mark to fill the gap at 12.25, which I'm pretty confident NIO is going to do pretty quickly. All right. This whole thing looks like a white cough accumulation. Institutions were just buying down here. Shorts are now starting to cover a bit, and this thing is starting to pump. So I'm hoping for nice price action for the next upcoming days. I do believe NIO is set for more explosive moves. And finally, we're starting to show some life. So anyways, guys, that's basically what I have for this video. I think Webull just adjusted their shards, and you can see NIO closed at like 11.68, very close to my resistance level. It's looking good, guys. So I'm hoping for a nice continuation. I'm going to make another video about this for tomorrow where I go into more details about their deliveries and things like that. So be ready for that next video. And I just want the best for everyone. Thank you for listening. Have a great weekend. And I'll see you guys tomorrow in the next video. NIO to the moon, because the long-term future is still incredibly bright. And peace out.